Sure, this study is about the regulatory burden of the FDA. And what I mean by that is the FDA has a monopoly power that Congress granted it many decades ago to determine whether a doctor can prescribe a prescription drug to a patient or not. What we're interested in is the relationship between government power and individual choice. Thomas Jefferson said that it is the natural tendency for government to grow and for liberty to yield, and that's what we've seen in the regulation of prescription drugs. I think there's a myth out there that there are a lot of dangerous drugs out there, and the FDA, the Food and Drug Administration, which is the regulatory bureaucracy which I'm addressing in this study, has not enough resources, not enough employees, not enough power. In fact, the opposite is true. We've known from very clear evidence for a decade that the FDA is very unproductive. It has more employees than comparable regulators in European countries or in Canada, and yet it doesn't approve drugs any faster. It doesn't conduct its regulatory bureaucratic process any faster. Between 2009 and 2011, the budget for approving new human drugs at the FDA has increased by 20%. Last year, the FDA actually exceeded its hiring targets of new employees. So it's not a problem that the FDA doesn't have enough money, doesn't have enough employees to do its job. The problem is it is a government monopoly. One thing you're going to learn is American patients and American doctors need more choice. It's the 21st century. There's a lot of innovation. There's a lot of scientists and doctors inventing new drugs. And the American government, through giving monopoly power to the FDA, is interfering with doctors' and patients' ability to use these new medicines. And there are patient groups like the Abigail Alliance, which was founded by a father of a 21-year-old woman who had a very rare form of cancer. There was a drug that was in an investigational stage that the young woman and her doctors wanted to use, and the government prevented them from using it. I think anyone who's prescribing medicines, a doctor, patients, families, friends, loved ones of patients who have critical illness, even those of us without critical illness who are taking a prescription medicine. There may be another prescription medicine which has been approved in another jurisdiction outside the United States, which Americans are not allowed to use, reducing the choice even for those of us who don't have critical illness. Those are the people who should be reading this. There are two very specific proposals that I put forward in this paper. Neither of them are ultra-libertarian proposals. One of them is actually encompassed in a bill that is in Congress right now called the Compassionate Access Act, and it refers to those patients with critical illness who actually are living under a death sentence if they're not able to use an investigational new drug that the FDA has not yet approved because there are no other options for them. The second very concrete proposal, and again this is not a crazy proposal, it's a proposal that anybody I think can understand. If the European Medicines Authority, which is the European equivalent of the FDA, the Food and Drug Administration, if it has approved a new medicine, then American patients should be able to use it. Now the FDA would still be allowed to put a label on the drug that says we have not approved this, the FDA has not approved this, but it's been approved by the European Medicines Authority. How I came to this conclusion to recommend this reform is I looked at all the new drugs which had been approved in a recent 12-month period by both regulators, the European Medicines Agency and the FDA. 39 new drugs were approved by both of these regulators. Now 11 of them were only approved by the European Medicines Authority. There were 13 that were approved by both regulators, but even if we look at all those 13, the European Medicines Authority approved those drugs over 3 months faster than the FDA did. These reforms are important, but it's also important to understand these are not just numbers in a chart or on a graph or in a government budget. These are real people's lives.